Well, he was invited, and now he's not. I'm Scott Ott with Bill Whittle now. And Bill, comedian Kevin Hart was going to have a lifetime dream come true, hosting the Oscar ceremonies for the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. But it turns out that somebody dug up some tweets that Kevin sent out back in 2009 to 2011 that are what they call in the industry homophobic slurs. As a result of which, Hart has decided to not host the Oscars, and he decided that after the Oscars demanded he apologize or lose his position, and Hart said, I'm not going to feed the trolls, and after all, he's already apologized before. But Bill Whittle, this raises, I think, several interesting questions. First of all, I want to address the core of your listeners who will basically say, look, I don't know Kevin Hart, I'm not on Twitter, and I don't watch the Oscars. How does this matter to me?
Well, it matters to you because everything that you know and believe in, virtually everything. Let me rephrase that. For some of our older listeners, they may have gotten a significant amount of moral instruction from church or from particularly well-structured individuals. But for most people my age and younger, virtually everything we know from movies and television. And if you don't believe that's true, then I would just simply say, all right, I'll start a sentence, you finish it, ready, here we go. Look, up in the sky, it's a bird. And if you can finish that sentence, you can do it because you've watched a lot of Superman episodes and they went straight into your brainstem just like everything else. So when we're watching movies or television, we're in a state of hypnosis. We lower our conscious guard and basically say for the next 90 minutes, I'm going to believe in vampires and werewolves, and they scare the hell out of us, and that means we're kind of hypnotized. So all of that just to say that whether you know who Kevin Hart is, whether you watch the Academy Awards anymore, or whatever the case may be, the Academy Awards and the host of the Academy Awards is the pinnacle of the left wing's media machine, which has implanted so many destructive ideas in our heads and the heads of our children, grandchildren, and so on. And the reason this is important is because it's another pin in a graph that is allowing even the most toxic, and I'm not saying Kevin Hart is one of these guys by any means, but even the most toxic comedians, even the most left-wing comedians, most progressive comedians are in terror of the left, not of the right. And I think a much stronger example, well, I don't know if it's stronger, but certainly it's equivalent to this. An actor I like very much, who I'm sure I disagree with politically on everything, is named Viggo Mortensen. He was the star of the 3 Lord of the Rings movies.
Viggo Mortensen?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And he is nominated for a performance he's done where he plays a kind of a New York City gangster tough guy driving a black concert pianist through the South in the, I want to say in the 50s or the early 60s, something like that. And he basically made a reference to the N-word, and I'm going to go along with this convention only because I'm just going to do it out of respect. But frankly, this N-word thing is ridiculous. But then again, I wouldn't use the F word either. So there's that's why I don't use it. In any event, he made a reference to he spoke that word in a way that was obviously referencing the movie that he was just working on, and he was they said it might cost him the Academy Awards. So there's this climate of fear, and that's the only word for it. It's a climate of fear, and it's infested everybody in Hollywood now, not just conservatives. Used to be just conservatives who were afraid to speak up, but now it's everybody, and in an awful way, this is good for us because the left has created this monster, and we see it everywhere, Scott. Where when you've decided that your entire goal for political power is to use the leverage of victimhood, to use people's own, use decent people's own sense of fairness and reluctance to be called racist when they're not racist. When you're willing to use a person's decency against them, and then set up a political strategy that's dependent on who can have the most moral capital by who can be the biggest victim. The problem with that theory is is that ultimately, if you really indoctrinate people in that, you're going to end up with one person. You're going to end up with the ultimate victim. There will be one person, according to the well-defined categories of grievance, who is top victim. And what the left is finding out now is that this is not discriminating against conservatives only the way they thought. We're finding liberal actors who are being told that what you've just said is so appalling. You know, these are social justice people.
Bill, let's be fair though. This is Hollywood. And don't you think when the Academy Awards are given out and there's such a disproportionate percentage of people who are in what is called the LGBTQ community who are part of that industry, don't you think that the Academy Awards, it's incumbent upon them to send a clear signal to people like Kevin Hart that there is no tolerance for this kind of hateful speech?
No tolerance for this kind of hateful speech today?
At any time.
Including in the past.
In the past and now. Is it correct
yes,
now
of course
and
it's
incorrect
correct.
then,
Of
or
course
vice
it's
versa?
correct now. Of course it's correct now. Of course Kevin Hart should be able to make gay jokes. He should be able to make gay jokes, and anybody should be able to make whatever other kind of jokes they want to make at any time. And they have not only should they have the constitutional freedom to do this, they should also have the social freedom to do this the way we did back when we were a free country. Of course you should be able to make gay jokes. And if they don't like it and if they're offended by it, well, you know, as they said in World War II, then sis on you, pister. And that's just the way it goes. This idea, Scott, that the entire society has to conform to the comfort level of the most outraged, hysterical, neurotic, childish person in America is where we are now, and the only way to beat it is to simply say no, I'm not going to do it. The comedians are feeling this the most. Guys like Chris Rock, who are big left-wingers, you know, and stuff, they're saying, I can't play colleges anymore because I can't make any jokes on colleges without being protested. And I've seen John Cleese talk about this too, and Cleese especially bothers me because Cleese is the kind of guy, John, it's your left-wing philosophy that you've been expounding your entire life that has created this atmosphere of terror, this intellectual terror, that you might say something wrong and that you'll end up taking a dive for it. Norm Macdonald, who I've always considered to be one of the most really outside the box clever and reckless comedians who really never seemed to give a damn about anything, said something a month or two ago, and he had to do the whole apology tour on The View, you know, and that apology tour is kind of like the steps, you know, that Jesus took in Jerusalem. You can have a nice tour of the order in which you need to
it's like
to
the
make
Stations
this
of the
sacred
Cross in
journey
the
of it.
Catholic Church.
That's precisely that was the term I was looking for. It's the Stations of the Cross, and when you've committed a mortal sin, like telling a joke about somebody that they found offensive, then if you hope to remain you know, within the bosom of the left-wing church, you have to make a pilgrimage, and you have to atone at every one of the Stations of the Cross, and Oprah's one of them, and The View's another, and there's a couple of other, you know, kind of must-see destinations. If you're going to forget your dignity's gone. If you're going to get some semblance of your career back in a year or two after you've abased yourself sufficiently, you know, people may be willing to overlook it, but they won't overlook it when it counts, like during an Academy Award show.
Bill, it occurs to me that they haven't taken this far enough, by the way, because think of this. This is Twitter. Twitter lasts for the half-life of a tweet is 18 seconds, okay?
No, you're wrong about that. You're wrong about that. The half-life of a tweet is eternity.
Well, that's true too. But the time that it appears on the public screen and before it vanishes into the torrent, unless you dig it up, it's essentially gone. Nevertheless, the Academy is made up of people who have been creating eternal works that are instantly available to average human beings who are not doing research, but can pull that up on their Hulu or Amazon Prime or Netflix screens instantly. Don't you think the Academy, it's incumbent upon them now to go back and say, what other hosts, guests, nominees, awardees, and films have been featured in our programming that we now wish to both apologize for and retract any awards they received?
Boy, I certainly hope so, Scott. This is something I just pray for. Because this is, when I say this is the left-wing elite, I'm not just talking about the most famous of the left-wingers. I'm talking about the people that have pushed left-wing philosophy into the culture. An example I've used for many years now is that in 1964 they made a movie called The Manchurian Candidate, starring Frank Sinatra. And Frank Sinatra was investigating the case of an American prisoner of war who'd been captured by the Red Chinese in Korea and was being brainwashed to assassinate the president, hence the Manchurian Candidate. In 2007, I think it was, they remade it with Denzel Washington, and this time the villain wasn't the Red Chinese, it was the Manchurian Corporation, a group of American businessmen. Okay, so the bad guy has gone from being the Red Chinese to being American conservatives, and this is one microscopic example in an entire ocean of what the left has been pushing down our throats, and we don't realize it because we pay them $20 to go into a room and sit there and become hypnotized and get their post-hypnotic suggestions, and we've been doing this forever, and it's not necessarily bad. We used to go and get post-hypnotic suggestions from guys like Jimmy Stewart and Frank Capra, which I thought were superb moral examples for people to live a good life. So when I say that the Hollywood elite is now consuming itself, it is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful thing. Because even the most staunch proponents of this, and I'm talking about people like Sarah Silverman and the rest of these far left progressive Bernie supporters. Sarah Silverman's a great example. You know, Sarah Silverman, I've never found particularly funny. She once or twice made me laugh out loud. You know, and she gets by on this cute thing. Sarah Silverman's the best looking girl at the Star Trek convention. You know, And so Sarah Silverman, who's a big Bernie supporter, really gigantic left-wing advocate, is now incapable of working on the comedy circuit because she's terrified that she'll say something that will be used against her in the court of public opinion. And this makes me exceedingly happy. It makes me almost overjoyed.
That she's terrified of
yes,
saying something?
Precisely.
I would think that would be exactly the opposite of what you would think, Bill.
No, Scott, because this campaign of intellectual terror has been leveled at conservatives for 30 or 40 years now, and every single person watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about. You may not be a famous person, and you may not be the kind of person who is terribly worried about having a Facebook comment or something that a friend remembered you saying going public and having it ruin your career. But every single person watching this program has at some point or another had an opinion that they wanted to express and basically kept it quiet because they didn't want to be seen as a racist or a Nazi or a homophobe or a misogynist or an Islamophobe or anything else. There's not a person watching this that hasn't swallowed some statement at some point, whether I support Donald Trump, whatever it is, doesn't matter. So I want this level of intellectual fear that the left has generated, by the way, which the left always generates. They generated it in communist China, they generated it in Cambodia, they generated it in Venezuela, they generated it in the Soviet Union, they generated it in the National Socialist movement in Germany. I want them to feel this because it's the only way that this is really gonna break. We've been protesting things like this for 30 years now. How many times have we talked about suppression and censorship on YouTube and Google and Facebook? It happens all the time. We all know it. I have 120,000 survivors. Survivors. That's you want to talk about a Freudian slip. We have 120,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And survivors is a really remarkable Freudian slip. And the shows get seen by 8,000. You know, they just simply suppress the rest of it. So what I want the people that have created this reign of terror to feel the reign of terror. I want them to feel it in their bones.
The ultimate good of being able to abandon this kind of approach.
Well, that would be the ultimate long-term good. Yes, that would be the higher goal. That would be the noble destination of this journey. And I wish I was a better person, but I'm not. So while I definitely believe that is the reason why I want them to feel this, I want them to feel the sting of this attack machine that they've made. But since I'm not a person of sterling character, I also want them to feel some pain about it too. I want them to feel the kind of pain they've inflicted on other people for quite a long time. I want them to get their fingers burned, and I want them to learn a lesson. And I am convinced, by the way, that this will in fact happen the way that we conservatives want it to happen. Because, as I said at the beginning, it is the inevitable conclusion of a victim-based society, that it's like Highlander, which is another pop culture reference that many people will get because they've been hypnotized into remembering these movies and series. But it's like having a group of immortals. In the end, there can only be one. They're going to kill each other until there's one left, and that ultimate victim will then be sitting on top of the victim pile, and all of the rest of everybody in Hollywood will be wondering what the hell happened to their freedom of speech. And the answer is, John Cleese and the rest of you, is that your policies have destroyed freedom of speech, and now you're feeling the sting about it professionally, and I'm kind of wondering how it feels. I'm wondering how you like it, and I'm wondering if you want to continue to promote the kind of policies that support things like political correctness and social justice neuroses that continue this thing now that you're feeling the bite.
So, Bill, because shame has its place and works for some things, but a lot of people reject that and then double down on what they already believe. I'm wondering if this is not a prime opportunity to use this Kevin Hart situation with the Oscars to reach out to fans of Kevin Hart, people on his side of the political aisle, as well as Kevin Hart himself, with a message of inclusion on our side that basically says, look, I disagree with you politically, but we welcome your right to say what you please.
Yes, absolutely correct. Absolutely right. It's an incredible opportunity. Kevin Hart now is experiencing what each individual left-winger has experienced. Some of them wake up, some of them just dive for cover. But Kanye West, we've spoken about many times, Kanye West supporting Donald Trump's the most important thing that's happened in this country since Donald Trump was elected. Because Kanye West has 30 million Twitter followers, 30 million young people, and Kanye West supporting Trump gives them permission to support Trump. And after Kanye West supported Trump, Trump's support among Black American males tripled. And that's the end of the Democratic Party if that trend continues. So by all means, Democrats, be sure to make your top spokespeople, the person who's hosting the Academy Awards, Scott, which is still watched by some people, believe it or not. It's watched by them, and that's what matters. This is their Christmas, Hanukkah, Yom Kippur. It is their entire religion condensed to 3 hours, and the person who is hosting those 3 hours yields. It's not my day for words. Let's try that again. Wields. The power to focus the attention of millions of people on progressive causes and take shots at the president, take shots at conservatives, and have it be seen by millions and millions of people, but nowadays more like thousands and thousands.
Isn't that the sweet irony of this, that Kevin Hart has just lost his opportunity to attack President Trump because of people on his side?
Precisely. This is entirely my point. It's eliminated his ability to attack Donald Trump because the left has decided that he has committed double plus ungood crime think, and now he must pay. And every time that this happens, you were saying that shame has some effect on people. Without a question, if I had to pick a category of people in the world whose shame had no effect on whatsoever, it would be the folks over the hill here in Hollywood. Now, not only do they not feel shame, they seem to revel in this kind of crapulence. But we're not just talking about shame now. Now we're talking about bucks, and that's a token of their religion that they still hold in high esteem. And now we're talking about bucks and careers and so on. And Kevin Hart's fans will be made aware of this, and that will affect their decisions. It'll eventually affect their voting patterns, because a lot of Kevin Hart's fans are also Kanye West fans, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's slowly beginning to dawn on them that they've created this monster. They created this golem to go out and kill, the heathens and the knuckle draggers out in flyover country. And this monster has now turned on them and is starting to rip them to shreds, and they don't know what to do about it. And I say, let a little more damage be done. Let a little more, maybe a lot more, damage be done to the creators of this death machine, this intellectual death machine, this court of public opinion whereby you will be tried according to the standards of the most neurotic, unstable, 18-year-old lunatics on the planet. They will hold you in a state of trial, and they'll determine whether you get to live or not. And this is the world they've created, and I say, welcome to it. We've stepped out of that world quite a long time ago. And if it turns out that Hollywood finally feels enough of a sting from this, it's just barely possible that enough people will start to walk away from this Democratic Party. We saw the same thing, what was it, 2-3 years ago? Or maybe even longer now, because time flies when you're in a coma, where the Academy Awards came under enormous criticism from left-wingers because it wasn't black enough. There were no black nominees in any of the major categories. And Hollywood got so stung by this that, needless to say, that has not ever happened again. But when you get that kind of criticism, by the way, and this is the ultimate thing about it, Scotty, when you have people saying there were no black nominees in any of the top major categories, and Hollywood, being liberals and being susceptible to this virtue signaling insanity, have decided we'll never see that day again. There will be a black nominee in every category. And what they've essentially done is they've created the best black actor category, which is a deadly insult to every single black and white actor in the country. It's a deadly insult to anybody with any level of skill to be able to be now put in a box that says, well, you may or may not have been one of the 5 best performances in the year, but we're including you anyway because, we have to do this to cover our own posteriors. And so what's going to happen as a result of this political correct insanity is that this kind of thing is going to happen, and people are going to resent, and they're going to look down on black actors as affirmative action for Academy Award nominees. And you're never going to know whether you got the award because you earned it, like so many extraordinary black actors like Denzel Washington and Halle Berry and all the rest of them. You're never going to know whether you earned it or not, or whether you're on the podium because people are afraid of what would happen if you wouldn't be. And Kevin Hart's supporters are going to develop an anti-gay bias, which will be driven by the fact that their favorite performer now has been denied this opportunity because a few LGBTQ activists have decided that they didn't like something he wrote in 2009. It's too bad for them. I'm sorry. It's a joke. And you obviously can't. That's my alarm there. This is my alarm telling me that the end of the world is coming. But that's what it comes down to, Scott. And so yeah, let's let these people never interrupt the enemy when they're making a blunder was Napoleon's maxim, and I'm kind of in favor of that. Although I do feel sorry for individuals like Kevin Hart and Norm Macdonald. But if there is no, we'll just wrap it up very simply. There's no better way to turn them into conservatives and turn their fans into conservatives than to tell liberals that they're not liberal enough to be able to show their face in public.
5 days a week, Bill Whittle is here at Bill Whittle Now, commenting on the news of the day. And a lot of times that's politics. But as Bill frequently reminds you, and as his old friend Andrew Breitbart used to say, politics is downstream from culture. And so we plan to bring you more of these kind of stories as well.
Sure.
That's right, culture. Ladies and gentlemen, the members at BillWhittle.com have made this show possible. They make possible its production and its distribution, and we are grateful to them. If you'd like to join that team of citizen producers, feel free to go to BillWhittle.com and click that subscribe link. For Bill Whittle, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making this possible.